A stepmom wrote to me recently saying something that might feel very familiar to many of you. She said, "Most of the time, stepfamily life is pretty manageable, but then a message comes in from my partner's ex and suddenly I feel completely derailed." She said she reads it, analyses the wording, thinks about what it might mean, replays possible replies in her head, and sometimes something that took 10 seconds to read ends up sitting in her mind for days. Meanwhile, her partner reads the same message, shrugs, and moves on with his day. If you've ever had that moment where one message suddenly hijacks your whole head, this episode is for you. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Stepmom Space Listener Questions with me, Katie South, where each week I take one of your questions and we talk it through here, not just to reassure you, but to help you understand what might actually be happening underneath. As always, the names are anonymised, but the feelings and situations are very real. This week's question comes from Natalie. She says, "Most of the time, stepfamily life is manageable, but then a message will come in from my partner's ex and suddenly I feel completely thrown. I reread it, analyse what it means, think about what we should say back, and sometimes it can sit in my head for days. My partner seems to be able to just shrug it off and move on, but I can't seem to switch my brain off. Help." Now, if you recognise that moment, you are not alone. In fact, this is one of the most common things women tell me. Often things can feel fairly steady, and then a message arrives. Your brain immediately starts trying to interpret it. What does that tone mean? Why did she phrase it like that? What does she actually mean? Is contact about to change? Should we reply now? Should we wait? And before you know it, something that took 10 seconds to read has taken up space for hours, sometimes days, and sometimes you'll be drafting replies while you're lying awake in the middle of the night. Meanwhile, your partner may read the exact same message and move on. And that difference can feel anything from confusing to completely maddening. Nobody wants to overthink text messages. So what's going on here? Well, it's something I call activation. Stepfamily life can contain a lot of uncertainty. There are more adults, more households, more schedules, more moving parts, and therefore more things you cannot control. When we live inside systems like that, our nervous systems naturally become more alert because unpredictability requires attention. So our brains start scanning for signals, messages, tone, small changes. We end up trying, often unconsciously, to understand what might happen next so we can stay ahead of it. Now, here's something important to understand. When that message arrives, your reaction does not start with thinking. It starts with physiology. Your nervous system spikes before you've even fully read the message. And some of you will know this from the feeling you get when you see the ex's name even pop up on the phone. And this spike is why telling yourself, "Don't overthink it," rarely works. Your body is already in a mild threat response. So the first thing to interrupt the spiral isn't actually a mental technique, it's a physical pause. So one of the most useful things you can do, and it's a simple one, is to first wait about 90 seconds before analysing the message. Neuroscience research shows the chemical surge of an emotional reaction lasts a minute and a half unless we keep re-triggering it with our thoughts. So what that means is when a message arrives, pause. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, take a few slow breaths, because if you read the message while your body is still in that chemical surge, your brain processes it in fight or flight mode, which is where catastrophizing begins. And once the nervous system is activated, the mind starts doing what it's designed to do. It tries to solve the situation. What does this mean? What's she implying? Is this going to escalate? Is this about to affect our plans? But most of those questions can't actually be answered in that moment. So the brain keeps searching for an answer that isn't available. And that's what creates the spiral. Not because you enjoy overthinking or because you want to do it, but because your brain is trying to resolve uncertainty. There's often another layer underneath this as well: responsibility. Many stepmums carry a quiet sense of responsibility for keeping the household emotionally stable. You want things to stay calm for you, your partner, and the children. You want things to stay workable. You want things to stay fair. So when something potentially disruptive appears, like a message from the ex, your brain tries to manage the situation. Your partner may not experience the same level of activation because their nervous system has been inside this system longer, or because they don't feel the same responsibility to manage its emotional impact. So while they see a message, you experience a potential ripple through the entire family system. Your brain is not overreacting, it's over-functioning. It's trying to manage a system that actually contains a lot of things that aren't yours to manage. And that's exhausting. Another reason the spiral happens is something psychologists call hostile attribution bias. When we expect conflict, the brain starts reading tone into neutral messages. And I'm sure if we're honest, we've all done this. So a simple logistical message can suddenly feel loaded, which is why another helpful step is to strip the message back to its literal facts. Ask yourself, what are the actual facts in this message? Not the tone, not what you think she meant, not what might happen next, just the facts. Very often, the facts are much simpler than the story your brain begins constructing. And that small shift alone can take a surprising amount of emotional charge out of the situation. This spiral pattern, where one message from the ex can hijack your entire evening, is actually one of the most common things women bring into Back in Control, my 6-week program for stepmums who feel mentally consumed by stepfamily dynamics. Inside the program, we practice interrupting that spiral in real time. So instead of rereading the message 10 times and thinking about it all night, you'll learn how to read it, respond if needed, and move on with your day. So to Natalie and anyone listening who recognise themselves in this question, nothing is wrong with you. Your brain has simply learned a pattern inside a complicated system. But good news, patterns can be changed. And if this episode resonated with you and you want more structured support with this, you can find the details for Back in Control in the show notes or search Stepmom space Back in Control. It begins in April and is designed for stepmums who feel mentally consumed by stepfamily dynamics and want to feel steadier inside their own lives again. If you know another stepmom who might recognise herself in this episode, send it to her. Because one of the hardest parts of stepmothering is believing you're the only one experiencing these reactions. You're not. I'll be back next week with another listener question. Till then, take care. And before we finish, if you're listening to Stepmom Space and recognising yourself in the constant adjustment, the walking on eggshells, the anticipatory anxiety before contact, or the way one message can derail your whole week, that doesn't make you weak. It's a position many stepmoms find themselves pulled into inside complex stepfamily systems, and it's more common than people realise. Back in Control is my structured program for stepmoms who are ready to move out of chronic vigilance and into steadiness inside their own home. It's psychologically grounded, contained, and designed specifically for stepfamilies where dynamics feel destabilising. If you're ready for more than just insight, search Stepmom Space Back in Control and you'll find the details. Back in Control, structured support for stepmoms who are done walking on eggshells and are ready to feel steady again.